This morning, we are privy to a side conversation. It's like the gathered crowd is mic'd up, and we are getting a taste of where some of the listeners go in their minds after Jesus had just addressed them. It feels a little bit like gossip. Did you hear what happened to the Galileans? This particular thread reminds me of those times when we hear that someone our age has died. Rather than face our vulnerability, we seek out a cause. What did they die from? Did they have a bad heart? Bad genes? It's devastating when we learn they were in perfect health. At such moments, we put our fried chicken down and vow to actually use our gym membership. But then we realize that such behavior apparently did not help them. So we proceed to do the only thing our parents probably taught us. Just bury that feeling of vulnerability. Just forget about it. Suck it up. Don't let it speak to you. Don't embrace it. Don't let it open you up. Look on the bright side of life. It's called avoidance. Now, we don't often talk about the intuition of Jesus, but wow! It's off the charts in this story. He can feel them trying to distance themselves not only from the suffering of others, but of their own suffering. Those go hand in hand, by the way. If we approach our suffering, we will approach the suffering of others. If we don't, we will not. So he says, unless you repent, which we know, metanoia, it means change your mind. It's not some puritanical weird thing. It just says, unless you change your perception of other people or of situations, the same thing's going to happen to you. So the vulnerable presence of God invites them back to the vulnerable feelings within them. Mercy, we've heard that word a lot this morning, probably 20 times already, is bound up with vulnerability. And when our now famous Bishop Marianne Budde publicly asked the president to have mercy, there was a dramatic response from the far right, saying things like the false gospel of kindness. On Joe Rogan's podcast, Elon Musk said this, and I quote, "The fundamental weakness of Western civilization is empathy. Empathy is seen as vulnerability, and vulnerability is weak. And who wants to be vulnerable or weak? Anybody? Good. Good. Quite a contrast to Paul's words in 2 Corinthians chapter 12, where he says, "But God said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weakness, so that Christ's power may rest on me. That is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in my weaknesses, in insults, in hardships, in persecutions, in difficulties. For when I am weak, then I am strong." If you don't think empathy is political, think again. If we are to build a truly moral response to all that is happening, let it begin with tending to the garden of empathy. And how do we do that? By embracing our own vulnerability. so we can be vulnerable to the vulnerable. By understanding that we are not okay. I wish I had an okay clicker. And just listen to the responses. How are you doing? Okay. How many times is the word okay said on a Sunday morning? You okay? I'm fine. We could have a fine clicker too. Every one of you, all of us, has an amazing story. And it's not that cleaned up version. It takes vulnerability to talk about your whole story, not the edited version of it. Learn to tell it all. Hey, you know, we all grew up in families, didn't we? Things happened to us or didn't happen to us. Don't minimize it. Those things happened to us or didn't happen to us, and they've had a profound imprint upon us. Be with it in a way that is healing and transforming. It's not easy, because once we commit to deep looking, we start confronting all the cultural lies that we have been told and continue to tell ourselves. Big boys don't cry. Suck it up. People have it worse than you. Really? Maybe big boys are courageous enough to grieve, to face pain and painful feelings, because that is how empathy is generated. You don't just, I think I'll be empathetic today. It takes work on yourself. This week I was on a national Zoom for facilitators of Sacred Ground. Remember that program? We had like 40 people take it. It was about racism. And it was being led by amazing African American women. And they were being vulnerable. And what they were talking about was that they have reached a deeper awareness that it's not just enough for white people to understand racism intellectually. That somehow, you know, oh, yes, that happened. In fact, a lot of times they say, when they start talking about the stories of racism in our country and the experiences, white people like to say, when did that happen? How did that happen? Who was involved? What can we do? Now imagine when you experience a loss and somebody only wants to know, when did it happen? How did it happen? Is there anything I can do for you? What is it that keeps us from being present to the profound grief and the lament? This was their conversation. And it was kind of the weirdest little, you know, webcast I've ever seen. Because you go to those to get information. We went to this one to feel. To feel. There was poetry. There was storytelling. There were testimonials. And then there were breakout groups, even scarier. And I got in the breakout group with the leader. And there were 3 of us. And so as we were talking about something, I could feel myself tearing up. I could feel it coming. I could feel it coming. And so I was reaching for the camera button. First thing when you want to do that, you want to turn your camera off. And something told me, no, this is cowardly. So I reached a little further for the Kleenex box. And I wept in front of my group. And Jesus wept. And we need to develop that skill of really being empathetic, which begins with learning how to be empathetic with us. This is how beloved community is built. I don't know how many of you came in here to put your best face on. Yeah? Say you're okay. But the reality is we're not. Community is not built on polished resumes. It's built on compassion, which literally means suffering with. Suffering with. How do we learn compassion? It begins with having compassion for ourselves. Jesus had it right. He invited that crowd to a place of vulnerability, and he did this by asking them to consider their fruitlessness based on avoidance. Okay, I'm just going to say it. Avoiding the crap in their family story would be one of those fruitless actions. Oh, I didn't have it that bad. The avoidance of pushing down at that is the manure in the story. The gardener giving the manure. Right? It's the crappiness in your life that's the resource, not something you should hide. Why do you bag it up and put it in a shed when you really need to compost it and dig it into your life a little more? Make it your full story. Maya Angelou said, the greatest agony in life is not telling your story. The real story. You hold it in. Be honest about the crappiness you are feeling. Be with it, understand it. Have the courage to share it with someone you trust. Spread it around and do some digging into it. And for God's sake, be kind to yourself. Stop judging yourself or telling yourself you're being selfish or wimpy or weak. Every step in that direction is a step towards personal and political ruin. Don't Elonize yourself. Say that to yourself when you're avoiding what you're feeling. Let that catalyze your desire to say, okay, I need to be honest. I need to go a little deeper here about what I'm carrying around inside myself. Don't compact the soil of your life. Till it. And be the gardener in this story. Don't ever run from yourself. Judge yourself for how slow the fruit is coming in your life. Try to dig some of the crap around your roots. Get your hands dirty and smelly in the compost of your story. And never give up on God's promise that life can be filled with luscious fruit. You can stop surviving and begin thriving. But it takes courage. And the path that Jesus lays out for us is a passage through the cross to the new life, not by avoiding it. One final point. It's a beautiful point. Did you notice what the gardener said to the owner? The gardener is filled with audacity. This is the guy the owner hires. And this hired hand said, Sir, let it alone for one more year until I dig around it and put more manure on it. If it bears fruit next year, well and good. But if not, you cut it down. Have you ever hired a laborer? You do it. The gardener will never cut the tree down. Ever. Ever. He will be patient, kind, caring, careful, hopeful, Can you do that for yourself? He believes in the fruit, whether it takes 1 year or more, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 70 years. Don't give up on yourself. You have more potential than you know. And you're filled with crap. Let it out. Let yourself be with it. Make it part of your story. Let that vulnerability turn to empathy. Let that empathy turn into the beloved community. Let that beloved community transform the world. It's never too late. Take it from me.